Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are located on planet Earth. It's time for another PulseWave report with yours truly, the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave price trigger reports. All right, so today is the big day, the big dance. The FOMC will announce what it is that they're going to do with these interest rates. And then right after that, and that's going to be at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Then I think at 2:30, that's when the press conference is going to come. So for at least an hour, I want to say until at least 3 o'clock, maybe even 3:30, depends on how long the press conference goes. The first hour of an FOMC day is the most volatile because you don't know what can happen. But over the years, it has become to mean less and less. We don't get the historical volatility that we used to see on FOMC days. There was a point in time in history where you wouldn't even put on any new positions during the FOMC day. And if at all possible, you would go flat the market and wait for the dust to settle. But that isn't the case anymore. FOMC days come and go and mean very little as far as the market is concerned. But we have been talking over the last couple of days. I've been hitting on different aspects of what's going on in the economy right now and how that's affecting the markets, etc. If you recall, yesterday we talked about unintended consequences. The unintended consequences of all this stimulus and the triple whammy of rising energy costs, rising food costs, and rising interest rates, the three amigos, and how that has a powerful effect on economic standings worldwide. Well, today we have in the news more unintended consequences. You know, we already in the United States of America have the highest number of mentally ill people. Millions, tens of millions of people take psychotropic drugs. Many more go undiagnosed. We got paranoid schizophrenics. We got bipolar disorder. We got multiple personality disorder, all types of disorders and mental illness in the United States of America. Not to mention, we've seen the highest rates in suicide ever in recorded history. All this is happening in the USA, and this is prior to COVID. COVID just pushed a lot of people who were teeter-tottering on the edge over the edge. You put people on house arrest, tell them they can't go outside, tell them they can't meet with their friends and family and loved ones, and what do you expect to have after that? So the people in the United States of America are cracking up. This is on the back of years of over propaganda, too much brainwashing, non-stop communication, being assaulted every 5 seconds with ads on the radio, ads on TV, ads on the computer, ads in movies, ads in video games, ads everywhere. Americans are bombarded with advertisements and marketing tools that are psychologically designed to hit certain segments of the population. If you turn on the TV at any given time throughout the day, you will see numerous commercials. Most of the commercials are not even talking to you. They're talking to someone else. You see the commercials for people with diabetes. Well, if you don't have diabetes, they aren't talking to you. You see commercials that don't use words to convey their message, but they use image. Obviously, when you see a Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial, you see a quote unquote person of color or persons of color in the commercial because they're trying to reach a core audience, and you know who that audience is. They're not talking to you, Mr. and Mrs. Vegan. They're not talking to you. This message is not for you. This is for someone else. Certain car commercials, you see, they have gotten hip, and they know that depending on what nationality of individual or individuals you put in a commercial will depend on the direction and the scope of the marketing and the effectiveness of the marketing. If you want to reach a certain demographic, you have to put that demographic in your commercials. How many thousands or millions of commercials have you watched or heard in your lifetime where there's different types of segments of the population they're trying to reach, and you can figure that out within the first 5 seconds of the commercial. They'll speak with a southern twang if they're trying to talk to someone and reach someone who is in the South. If they're trying to reach people in the North, then they'll make sure they have someone that has that accent, that northern accent, or they're trying to talk to someone out west, they're going to use that western accent. They'll put a cowboy in the movie, in the little commercial, and you know who it is they're talking to and who they're trying to reach. All this is psychological manipulation. Americans are psychologically bombarded and manipulated every minute, every second of every day for the rest of their lives, from the time that they're born, from the time that they can read, write, and understand the English language. They are bombarded with psychological manipulation. Then when they go to public school, they receive more psychological manipulation. They become used to being programmed. There are multiple ways they program you in public school. One of the ways they program you is with cognitive dissonance, and they like to use that for you. They like to use a whole bunch of different types of techniques. You know, when you hear that bell, class is over and you have but 5 minutes to get to the next class. It doesn't take long that when people hear that bell, they get out of their seats even before class is dismissed by the teacher, because they've been so programmed to know that when you hear that bell, you get up and you go. They become programmed to know that when you hear the fire alarm, it's time for you to use whatever procedures you've been programmed and taught, and that's what you do. When you go out into the real world, when you leave the public school, on your way home, if you're in the school bus, you receive more programming. You're probably told to sit down and shut up the entire ride home. While you're on your way home, more programming is taking place, more psychological manipulation. When you come to a sign that has been painted with red and white colors, and every time you approach this sign, the bus comes to a complete stop. You find yourself on the road home, you come to what is called a traffic light. That traffic light is programmed to initiate a handful of colors. You were programmed and psychologically manipulated to understand that each color means something, and that is how you were to respond when you see these colors. You add to the fact physical violence associated if you break this psychological conditioning. You do so at the risk of physical violence. That is what happens. If you run that stop sign or run that red light, you may get into a car accident, you may harm yourself, you may harm others, or you may be pulled over by the police and you may get a ticket, or you may even become arrested. You may even become a victim of physical violence from the police in the process of becoming arrested. So there is outcomes that are associated with the psychological conditioning and programming that you have to endure. But there's unintended consequences of psychological programming. And human beings are not immune to this. The first psychological programming comes in your actual family. Your parents train you from the time that you can move on your own, that there are certain parameters, there are certain areas, there are certain things that are off limits to you. Parents don't just let the toddler run all around the house unsupervised. They have little baby gates you can put up. This psychologically conditions the toddler that there are certain boundaries that you cannot cross, places you can go and places you can't go, things you can touch, things you cannot touch. And by the time the toddler reaches the terrible twos, they begin to test their boundaries. Mama said, don't touch that. I'm going to touch it anyway. Let's see what happens. What happens? The toddler is met with a form of physical violence. The toddler may be spanked, may have their hands plucked. That is done to condition them psychologically that if you violate the terms of your parameters of your mobility, you will be punished. Now, let's put this into perspective to be fair. Not all conditioning is wrong or harmful. The baby should know that the stove is hot. And if you put your hand on the hot stove, it will burn you. You will experience pain. That is how we human beings learn, is through pain. So you touch the stove anyway because you don't believe what you were told. You want to test the parameters to see whether or not these things be so. You put your hand on the stove, it burns you, you pull your hand away. Now you've been taught a very valuable lesson. You now know that if I violate the terms of my conditioning and programming, I now know that there is pain associated with doing so. The likelihood of a human being who has learned the hard way that a hot stove will burn you, the likelihood of them deliberately placing their hand on the stove again is zero. Unless there is something wrong with the human being's mind, if something is mentally off or wrong with them, a sane person would not repeat that, because you don't want to experience the severe pain and discomfort associated with violating these rules, violating these parameters. Well, as we know, we live in a world of reality where every action has a reaction. For every positive, there's a negative. Pros and cons. But if you want to know exactly how far the American people have become damaged mentally, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, all you have to do is take a look at your local news. Case in point, an Indianapolis man killed 3 adults along with a child following an argument over dividing a stimulus check, according to a probable cause affidavit viewed by CNN. We all know that CNN is the teacher's pet of television lying, manipulation, and propaganda, and they have been exposed and called out on numerous occasions, yet they're still on the air. So we will take what they say with a grain of salt. The Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department responded to a woman shot on Saturday night. She told officers there were more victims. In another residence, officers found 3 adults and a child shot to death. A 7-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 35-year-old, and a 44-year-old. Detectives discovered that Malik Half-Farce, 25 years old, who wounded the initial victim, Jeanette Moore, his baby mama, was also responsible for the quadruple murder. He fled the scene with the 6-month-old daughter, the affidavit said. The child was found safely at a relative's home. The perpetrator was arrested Sunday evening inside the attic of another house down the street. Officer Janae Cook, a spokeswoman for the Indianapolis Police Department, stated. According to the affidavit, the shooter told detectives he began arguing with the baby mama about his stimulus check. There was an argument there that escalated to the point where he pulled out his weapon and started shooting everyone there in the home, Deputy Chief Craig McCart said. He wanted some of the baby mama's tax money along with her stimulus check. Wendy Johnson, baby mama's cousin, told local news WXIN. Domestic violence disputes like this one come as tens of millions of stimulus checks are becoming available to working poor Americans after President Joe Biden signed the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package. Biden promised on Monday that there would 100 million stimulus checks be in people's bank accounts in the next 10 days. While there was mention in the affidavit of why the shooter desperately wanted the government money that forced him to kill 4 people, a Deutsche Bank poll shows many respondents are taking the free money to buy Bitcoin and stocks. Ladies and gentlemen, after hearing all of this, after reading it to you, I can't help but to be skeptical. Now, let me explain what I mean by this. This may or may not have happened. This may be a real incident. For all intents and purposes, we're going to say it is. Let's just say, for the purpose of this segment of it, let's say it is true, it's real. This is what happened. The people mentioned, all of this stuff is real, not crisis actors, not a fake story, but real. Even though the Supreme Court ruled that news outlets by law can make up news, can create fake news. Supreme Court made that determination over a decade ago. Now, at the beginning of this, I stated to you that CNN has been exposed as being a fake news outlet. For those of you who are new to that statement and don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google it yourself. I'm sure there are still dozens of videos all over the internet, even on YouTube, showing you, exposing where CNN lied, made up stuff, going all the way back to the Desert War. So we already know what CNN is about. But my issue is not really with CNN this morning as a mainstream media outlet. My issue is with this actual article and the way that it is being presented and portrayed and the wording that is being used in it. I don't know if you all caught this on the first take, but there seems to be some sleight of hand going on with the article. Now, you know that the whole social justice warrior cancel culture movement is alive and well and gaining momentum and gaining political power. Isn't it interesting, though, that we have a continuation of this negative stereotype being perpetrated in this particular article? Never let a good incident go to waste, right? Milk it for all you can, for all the political capital you can gain from it. So let's break this down a little bit. First and foremost, we have a quote unquote black couple, black family. What is stereotypical in this black family, as a culture? Baby mamas. It's very interesting how that part of the story was highlighted and done so with that slant in mind. Here's a baby mama. All right. This is the narrative they want to push in the black community, in the black culture, the baby mama. All right. There even been songs made about baby mama, baby daddy. That is what they're pushing forward. That is the narrative. That's the first thing that you notice when they are breaking this story down. The next thing that you notice within that, it's not that, it's just that, the black community is prone to having children out of wedlock. Back in the day, you would call that a baby who was born illegitimately, you would call that baby a bastard. Okay? Now, it's very sad here in this situation that not only did they highlight the baby mama, baby daddy part of the story, but they also perpetrated the narrative of the black man and the black woman cannot get along and cannot be together. Have you noticed the extreme drought, the severe depression of positive black role models as a family since the Cosby Show? You don't really see that on the television anymore. Instead, you have this narrative that is continued to be pushed that black men and black women cannot get along. The black man brings out the angry black woman in the black woman. And that is the narrative that they want you to be focused on. They've even gotten you comfortable with that idea to the point where now on multiple shows and movies, you see the black chick with a white dude and the black dude with a white chick. All right? That's what they're showing you. And they have no problem and take no shame in pushing that agenda, telling you that that's what you should be doing, that's okay. And people fall right in line with that too. The next thing that you notice in this is that in today's social justice reform, cancel culture, leftist, Marxist, communistic propaganda, that the black man is poor. The black man is poor. Black people are poor. If you are born black, 99.9% of the time, you are born poor and living in the hood. living in the ghetto. That is not the story of every quote unquote black person in America. Not every black person grew up in the ghetto or grew up poor. Not every black person is a drug dealer or a rapper or a drug dealer turned rapper or a drug dealer turned basketball star or some type of sports athlete. Not all black men are athletic. Not all black men are expert basketball and football players. Okay? Again, pushing this particular stereotype, this particular narrative for you to gobble up. The second thing that you notice in this particular thing is how they added that the fight was over the stimulus money, pushing the stimulus bill. Also, this one was really sly and really this is where the sleight of hand comes in that most people probably missed, and that is that they had to put in there and let you know that this was really about the stimulus check. And here's where the sleight of hand comes in. Here it is. Don't miss it. The left is the savior of black people. See what Joe Biden did for you? He just gave you $1.9 trillion. See, many black people, many poor black people, you know, they really look forward to this money, man. This money is changing their life and pulling them out of poverty. Remember, that's what they want you to believe, that this little stimulus check is going to take you out of poverty. Nonsense. Poppycock. And then to put the cherry on the top, another Illuminati company other than CNN, they mention Deutsche Bank. Between the two, I don't know who has the longest criminal rap sheet. Between those two organizations, I'm sure their rap sheet is longer than the shooter in this story and George Floyd put together. Ladies and gentlemen, do not drink this nasty Kool-Aid. It is disgusting. It is more propaganda being thrown at you. And then I guarantee you, you're going to hear this story all over the mainstream media, all over social media. Again, having the black race play the blame victim again. They're the victim. He's a victim. That's what they want you to know, too. The shooter is also a victim. Because, see, we need more stimulus. And then, you know, we won't have this situation. We in the left are here to save you and rescue you. That's why you need to keep voting for us and putting us in power. Then if that wasn't enough to take the cake, they threw you GameStop people under the bus, and this, you don't have anything to do with this article. Robinhood traders have nothing to do with this article, but they use this article to throw them under the bus too. Now, of course, they're not going to come out and say GameStop. No. What did they say? They said, you know, Deutsche Bank has put a poll together. I don't know how Deutsche Bank has time to put a poll together when they're so busy with their money laundering. But they had the time to put a poll together to say that taking of the free money, these poor people are going to use it to buy Bitcoin and stocks. Again, taking a jab, an underhanded, backhanded way of coming at and coming for the GameStop people that had the audacity to buy GameStop shares using the Robinhood app, hurting the Illuminati elite hedge funds that were ultra short in the stock. So they're punishing you for punishing them and exposing them and their lack of trading prowess. All in one little teeny article. All this in one little article. Absolute garbage. Oh, they didn't stop there. There's another part. I'm sure this is probably the first thing you saw when you heard the article or read the article, and that was they had to take a jab at your First, Second, Third, and Fourth Amendments. He had a gun. Gun control, gun bill, gun laws. He had a gun. He shot his victims to death. He shot them to death. He did not stab them to death. He shot them to death. He pulled out his gun and he shot them to death. Now, they were very careful to be not just politically correct, but they also tried to take the ivory tower approach in their language. They didn't say the word gun. They didn't say the word gun. They said weapon, because they want you to know that a gun is nothing more than a weapon. They want to put that piece of programming in you. You associating the word weapon with the word shooting. Weapon, shooting. Weapon, shooting. Weapon. All right? So they want you to know that guns are weapons, dirty little nasty weapons, and that these weapons are hurting the black community. Because here we have another example of black people becoming victims of gun violence. Even though this wasn't perpetrated by the police, this was perpetrated by one of their own. You can't blame white supremacy on this situation, but yes, they can, and yes, they will, because he used a gun that was made by a quote-unquote white supremacist corporation. Gun manufacturers, in their eyes, are the devil. Therefore, they need to be punished. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen. You see what happens when you read things and you use the words that they're using and break it down and really see what they're saying? You can say a lot without saying it. Okay? You got to, man. You got to. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a hit piece. This is a hit piece. And you need to know that. They found the perfect scenario, the perfect news piece to go ahead and weaponize. The media is now guilty of weaponizing the news. Weaponization of news is what we are seeing here. It's not a mistake that they used the words that they used. Okay? Then notice the last paragraph. All right? They said that the man was desperate. Okay? And that his desperation is what forced him to kill 4 people. See, this is the trickeration, the technology, the pimperization that the mainstream media is so good at. Notice how they're making the gunman, the murderer, out to be the victim here. They're saying he's not really a murderer, he's a victim of a white supremacist system. See what you made me do? See what you made me do? They're saying that the white supremacy made him do this. He was forced to kill 4 people. Now, in case you think I'm taking it out of context, word for word quote, it says, quote, while there was mention in the affidavit of why he desperately wanted the government money, desperately, and then the word wanted, and then government money, he desperately wanted the government money, that forced him, his desperation for the government money forced him to kill 4 people, end quote. All right. Forced. It's a forced. In other words, see, government, if you don't keep with the stimulus program, this is what happens. This young man is desperate. So his desperation forced him, made him, compelled him to kill 4 people. Really? Words have power. Words have meaning, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you have to read things more than once to get the full meaning of it. All right? And then they want you to know that domestic violence disputes like this one come as tens of millions of stimulus checks are becoming available to working poor Americans. Notice how they had to put working poor in there. They had to put working poor in there. They had to put working. They couldn't just say just poor Americans. Because see, then that would fly in the face of their economic recovery narrative. They want you to know, oh, these people aren't just poor. They're working now. They're working. They might not be making enough money to survive, but they are working. They're called the working poor because they do have jobs. Okay, they got jobs. Do you know why they worded it that way, ladies and gentlemen? I'll give you a few seconds to put on your thinking caps and explain why that was worded. This sentence, it probably took them an hour to write this one little sentence, but they had to come up with the right wording. Think about it. Look at the words that are listed in this sentence: domestic, violence, disputes, like this one, using this as an example to push the agenda. This one comes as, they said this one, this is just one of many. Get it? One. This one came as tens of millions of stimulus came. So this one and then tens of millions. This is this scenario. They're threatening you that this scenario could happen 10 million times over as the stimulus checks are becoming available to who? The working poor. Not the poor, but the working poor, because they're telling you that the unemployment rate is beginning to improve. So he's not just poor. No, he's the working poor. Okay. Now, since when did you disassociate the word coronavirus from fear and death and pain and agony? Well, they're now reprogramming you. Today you got to re-download. Today you got to update a file, because now they're putting the word coronavirus in the same, right next to the word relief. Coronavirus no longer means death. Coronavirus now means relief. That's why it's called the coronavirus relief package. They want you now to disassociate the word coronavirus with negativity. They want you now to associate the word coronavirus with the word relief. Coronavirus equals relief. See, ladies and gentlemen, this coronavirus was necessary. We had to do this to you. We had to release this superbug onto the public in order to relieve you. See, you wouldn't get this $1.9 trillion if it wasn't for the coronavirus. But now the coronavirus is a healing virus, because now we're here to relieve you, bring you relief. We're going to relieve you. We're going to release you now from the pain that we caused you. This is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're hearing me. Weapon. They want you to associate the word gun without even using the word gun. It's hint, hint, wink, wink. He pulled out his weapon and started what? Shooting. See, this is the sleight of hand. Did they have to use the word gun for you to associate the word weapon with shooting? Everyone knows that they didn't tell you what the weapon was. Yeah, they did. What weapon do you know that can shoot? A knife can't shoot. A knife can stab. A knife can jab. A knife can cut. A knife can wound and puncture. But a knife cannot shoot. There's no trigger mechanism to cause the blade to shoot out of the handle on your most models anyway, unless you're James Bond. So you put two and two together. He pulled out what? His weapon and what? Started shooting. Who did he shoot? Everyone there in the home. All right. They're letting you know that this is coming to you. It said he shot everyone in the home. They used the word home. They didn't say house. They didn't say dwelling. They could have used a lot of other words, but they didn't. They said home, because when you hear the word home, you start to personalize it. They want you to personalize this news story, so they use the word home. All right, home. Didn't say dwelling, didn't say apartment, didn't say flat. They could have used a lot of different terminology, or they could have said dwelling. No, they said home. They want you to personalize this story. Now, while they're at the same time using the word relief, before they got to the word relief, they were scaring you to death. Gun violence. Okay? This is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the propaganda that the Americans are hit with. No wonder why so many Americans take psychotropic drugs for mental illness, for depression, personality disorders. No wonder. This is the unintended consequences of all of this psychological manipulation. Instead of reporting news, they're using psychological manipulation and propaganda, ladies and gentlemen. Also, they kept using the word affidavit, affidavit, affidavit. They didn't say police report. They did not say police report. They did not say investigation. They used the word affidavit. Why does CNN have to use the word affidavit, ladies and gentlemen? Do you understand the connotation of what the word affidavit brings to the table? When you put that on the table, you put the word affidavit on the table. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Come on, class, you know. Keep up. The word affidavit means truthfulness. It means matter of fact. It means I hereby attest to the truth listed therein under the penalty of what? Perjury. They're saying, CNN is letting you know what? We are liars. We lie through our teeth every day. But on this instance, we're telling you the truth. Affidavit. I swear under the penalty of perjury. That's what you think when you hear the word affidavit. Truth. Facts. You get it? You get where they're going with this now? This has to be one of the most cleverly worded stories that I have seen in a very long time. Then I think, perhaps this, again, we're going to say that this is a real story. I'm not calling this a false flag. I'm going to say it's a real story. But the coincidences, you gotta acknowledge these coincidences, man. Okay. If you look at dude's face, his mugshot, if you will, he's scruffy. His beard is scruffed out. And he has dreads. They're letting you know, they're making no mistake. They want you to know that when you see this, when you see his mugshot on this story, this is a quote unquote black man, African American man. He is not any other nationality. All right. He got the locks, ladies and gentlemen. He got the locks in his hair. And his beard looks scruffy. Like he just came home from prison, or he's homeless, sleeping outside, in the park. This right here is one of the roughest mugshots I've seen in a long time. They want this man to look as homeless and poor and desperate as possible. This photo does that for you. This photo makes you say, oh, my heart goes out to the African American community. Oh, they got it so bad. Oh, man, poor man was driven to desperation by, and you know what? You know what they're doing too? I'm going to add this in there. Because remember, this is part of a larger campaign. We hate you, Donald Trump. See what you've done? They're saying that this whole coronavirus situation from 2020 is Trump's fault. And as a result of it, you need Biden and the left to come in and approve stimulus so that these people can get pulled out of poverty and so that they don't have to suffer anymore. You poor, poor man. So now black people have become the victims in America, the victims of the world, the most victimized people in all of history. They want you to believe that the African American has suffered more than any other nationality in world history. That under this white supremacist plight, the African American has suffered more than any other human being on the planet. They want you to know that the suffering of the African American in the United States of America is greater than the suffering of Christ on the cross. They want you to know that the African American community in the United States of America was nailed to the cross right next to Jesus. That's what they want you to know. That the innocent African American community has been wronged, has been victimized. They don't belong up there on that cross. Why you put them up there? They are more righteous than Jesus himself. I can't believe you doing this to the black man. It's a shame before God. That's what they want you to. That's what they want you to walk away with. Okay? That's what they want you to walk away with. Real quick, I see you, man. My brother Don is in the room. What up, Donnie, man? Thanks for the support, man. I appreciate it. Man, ladies and gentlemen, this is what they want you to know. This is what they want you to see. That the black man, the African American man, is the biggest victim in American history. That's what they want you to know. That the black man is the victim. The black man is the victim. He is the victim. The black family, the African American family is the victim. They are the victim. It doesn't matter that some, if not the majority of African Americans that grew up in the hood move out and do better for themselves. Nope, don't want you to focus on that. Not supposed to talk about that. Not supposed to talk about the Black Lives Matter. Really don't matter to the black community because it's the black community that are killing their own people. You're not supposed to talk about that either. Because no matter what you say, they're going to say, well, everything that you can say negative about the African American community is a result of white supremacy. You and I know that that is a bunch of malarkey. All right? It's a bunch of malarkey. The white man didn't tell you to shoot them people. You shot those people. You could have handled your dispute a whole different way. It was you who decided to pull out a weapon, according to the article, and shoot people. All right? You did that. The white man is the devil, according to you, but yet you murdered an entire family. But you're a victim, though. If a white cop kills an innocent black man, oh my goodness, the world's coming to an end. But when a black man destroys an entire black family, oh, he's just a victim. He's a victim. Where is Black Lives Matter now, speaking out against this? Where's Antifa when you need them now? The real victim in this story is the people who got shot, not the one who shot them. They want you to have sympathy for the perpetrator. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the insanity of America. The United States of America has lost its ever-loving mind. All right? And the plight of the African-American family is in jeopardy. Want to know why? Because the plight of the African-American family, on one hand, nosedived right after the 1960s civil rights. That's when the black families began to nosedive. The African-American culture began to nosedive. If the African-American community, the African-American family was a stock, it would be the biggest stock crash in history. They crashed from economic proportions. They crashed in every aspect that a person can crash. The African-American community has crashed morally, have crashed spiritually, not economically. There are more wealthy African Americans today in 2021 than there was in 1990, than there was in 1890, than there was in 1790, etc., etc., etc. We have more black billionaires than ever before, more black millionaires than ever before. More black people now have a college degree than ever before. There are more black people holding master's degrees and doctorates, okay, than ever before. There are more accomplished black people than ever before. Their entire argument collapses under the weight of the reality and the facts. All right, black American people are not victims. They're not victims of white supremacy. And it's funny that people are drinking this nasty Kool-Aid, these lies. It's a lie. They want you to think that only a few people escape the ghetto. That is a lie. If only a few people escape the ghetto, then how do you explain gentrification? Why are they tearing ghettos down? Why aren't they making more ghettos? Ghettos are being torn down all over the country. What are you talking about? Starting with the nation's capital. That whole ghetto space is shrinking. Okay? That should tell you something. You can only tear something down when it's no longer necessary. Once again, you have more affluent African American people today than you did in any time in history. These are facts. These are facts. They don't want to deal with it. So guess what? You can't blame white supremacy or systematic racism because it doesn't bear up under the weight of reality. Reality flies in the face of that. How do you explain so many affluent African Americans if white supremacy is so pervasive and holding people back? You don't make any sense. Oh, the white supremacy. Really? White supremacy where? What? See, they're not saying that racism exists. We all know that racism exists. As long as human beings will be on the earth, racism will exist. That's not the issue, and that's not what they're saying. They're saying systematic white supremacy. They're basically trying to say that we are still under Jim Crow. The way that the wording that they're using and how they're describing it, we're supposed to still be under Jim Crow or worse. They're basically saying that no black man can get ahead in this world. That's what they're saying. But again, their arguments don't hold up. There is no systematic racism. There's no systemic racism. If it was, then Tom Sowell and Walter Williams wouldn't have had the support that they had from the white community all these decades if there was so much white supremacy around. How do you explain a Tom Sowell or Walt Williams, rest in peace? How do you explain those two gentlemen? How do you explain them? Tom Sowell told you how he grew up. All right? In the circumstances of his upbringing. How do you explain someone like him? His existence destroys the Black Lives Matter arguments. It destroys it. It crumbles under the weight of that reality. And so many others. How many Black doctors have come out of the urban ghettos? How many Black nurses? How many Black surgeons? How many Black scientists and engineers have come out of the ghetto? Black artists, Black capitalists. How do you explain that? You can't. Your argument blows up. It explodes in your face because what you're saying is a bunch of nonsense. And to make matters worse, if white supremacy was so systemic, if we're under Jim Crow, then how do you explain incarcerated African American people coming out of prison and becoming millionaires because they become entrepreneurs in legit business? And they even teach other ex-cons when they come out how they can get their hustle and grind on too and make money legitimately and do well for themselves. How do you explain those testimonies? You heard them. You know they exist. You've seen them. You've heard them. You even know some people. You know some African-American brother that did 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, come out, start a business and doing well for himself, doing better now than he did before he went in. How do you explain those stories? These individuals, these brothers have it worse than everybody because not only did they pay their debt to society, but then when you come out, you have to continue to pay your debt to society forever. They won't let you vote. It appears on your credit report. You can't put the past behind you. If you go look for a job, they're going to use it against you and not hire you. Everybody, you got to take your past with you. Everywhere you go, it's going to come up. When they run any kind of numbers on you, do any kind of background, your conviction, your incarceration is going to come up, and it's going to prevent you from moving forward. That's why most of the offenders, when they come out, they have to start a business. Got to get their hustle and grind on that way because no one's going to hire them. They've already paid their debt, but it doesn't matter. They're blacklisted forever, which is a shame. That is ridiculous. But that's a whole nother discussion. That's a whole nother discussion. Now, in all that I've said this morning, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that racism doesn't exist, because it does. I've met racist people in my lifetime. But I got to tell you, as a multi-ethnic individual, I got to tell you, my best clients have not been African-American clients. They've been other nationalities, just keeping it 100 with you. Keeping it 100 with you. If America is so racist, then why do I have so many quote-unquote Caucasian friends and family members, blood relatives, and clients? Why is PulseWave trading the #1 trading methodology on the planet if there's so much systemic white supremacy in this country? Why is my business partner a quote-unquote white man? one of the most humble, godly men that I've ever met in my life. How do you explain that if we have such a racist problem in our country? Well, let's look at the facts. My partner, who is a quote unquote white American according to your standards, America, how do you explain him? How do you explain our relationship? How do you explain his contributions to post-wave trading? If it were not for his contributions, you would not have post-wave trading today. Not in the form that it's in. Nope. That brother worked hard with me, grinded with me in the trenches to make it what it is today. So if there's so much racism, how do we explain this situation? Huh? According to you, shouldn't he be abusing me? Stealing from me? Embezzling from me? According to Black Lives Matter, according to social justice and cancel culture, shouldn't he be my enemy? That is not the case. I trust this brother with my life. Like I said, one of the most honest, humble human beings I've ever met. How do you explain that? Some of my best clients of all time that go into the Hall of Fame of clients are quote unquote white Americans, Anglo-Saxon, however you want to call it. I thought you said I thought you said the white man was the devil. I thought every white person was racist and needed to apologize for their white privilege. Then how do you explain my best clients, best customers of all time being of this quote unquote Caucasian persuasion? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Certainly there may be more quote unquote African Americans in my camp. I'm not saying I don't have some, I do. And I have had those as personal clients throughout the years, but I'm just keeping it 100 with you. Some of them who were wealthy were some of the most stingiest people I ever met. They wanted to give me peanuts to work with and expected a miracle. Where on the other hand, my Caucasian brothers gave me their life savings to put to work for them with amazing results that followed. They trusted me with their life savings. Oh, and let me take it even another step further. Some of my Hall of Fame clients, we've never even met personally. Some have never even seen my face. And yet they trusted me. And some I likewise have never met, and I have trusted them. How do you explain this in a white supremacist, systemic racist culture? What I am saying is their definitions do not line up with reality. It doesn't, what they're saying, I'm here to tell you it doesn't exist. It does not exist. Do racist people exist? Yes. Are some people that are in power racist? Yeah. Are there racist judges? Absolutely. Racist police officers? Absolutely. Racist people taking your order at McDonald's and racist people taking you through the checkout at Walmart? Absolutely. Absolutely. But here's another thing, ladies and gentlemen. They want to make you think that black people can't be racist. That is a lie from the pit of hell. All nationalities can be racist. You can be bigoted. You can be ignorant. Ignorance knows no nationality, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you guys can help me because, you know, sometimes it's hard for me to recall things on the fly. So you guys, the audience that are listening, you can help me. You can fact check me. You can correct me in the chat or whatever. But the example I'm about to use, I think you know where I'm going. Remember the movie, The Hotel? Remember the Hotel movie? Hotel Rwanda. There you go. Okay. What was that all about? Two different factions, both African, going to war with each other. One committed genocide on the other. That had nothing to do with systemic racism. So yes, Black people, African people can be racist and feel superior to their brethren. Yes, that happens. Yes, it has happened throughout history. Moreover, just about every nationality and every nation that ever existed enslaved one another. White people have enslaved white people. Black people have enslaved black people. Indians have enslaved Indians, etc., etc., etc. Man has been enslaving his fellow man since the beginning of time. The sooner you come to terms with that, the quicker we can get out of this so-called social justice warrior ridiculous foolishness. It's insanity. And we need to expose it for what it is and keep it moving, because it's a distraction from what's really going on. All right? It's not a matter of race, it's a matter of grace. It's not a matter of skin, it's the matter of sin. Human beings have sinful hearts. Human beings are desperately wicked. Human beings will continue to sin, will continue to lie, will continue to steal and cheat and manipulate, harm, kill, rape, murder, whatever, because human beings are fallen, they're sinful, and they're in need of deliverance. Why do you think Jesus went to the cross? You think he did it because it was fashionable or because he felt like it? He did it because it needed to be done, because if he did not do it, there would be no hope for humanity. Humanity would cease to exist because humanity will wipe itself out. That is the ravages of sin, the deceitfulness of sin. It feels good, but the results and the after effects are eternal. And that's something to think about, ladies and gentlemen. You want to heal the African American community? Well, they need to turn back to Christ, because they have forsaken him and turned their back on him. Now, I'm gonna leave you with this. You guys can research for yourself. All right, you can do some digging for yourself. But have you noticed? This hasn't been lost on me. The situation with the African American community is unique in all of history. I have to at least admit that part. African Americans are unique because African Americans are a new, I don't want to say new race, new nationality per se, but they kind of are. If you go back 1,000 years, there was no African Americans. There was just Africans. You dig what I'm saying? But because of the whole slavery thing and the the masters impregnating their female slaves and all the mixing of the race in that regard, that's what created this so-called African American nationality. All right, that did not exist before. So it's very unique when you take a look at the history of the African American family. Now, the things that the African American family endured during those times, it's very real, but we don't have the full story given to us by the race baiters. The race baiters want to focus on certain aspects without telling you the whole story and the whole truth. But anyway, this unique situation, there's a unique set of circumstances with the African American family that we cannot ignore. And the solution to fix the African American family, it's a multi-layered situation going on in the African American community. But what we do know is some of the things that are being used to keep that state going. One of the things that are being used to keep that state going is the music. Again, the music. All right? The music. Let's be honest. The music has become more ungodly, more disgusting, more thottish, pimpish, whorish. It lifts up the gangster lifestyle. Gangster rap is a phenomenon. It is also something that did not exist before. It did not exist before. Period. It did not exist. We've always had musical forms and musical tradition, but gangster rap is a new phenomenon. Before gangster rap, see, it would have been different if when rap hit the scene, in the late 60s, early 70s, if it started off being gangster rap, then you'd be like, okay, well, rap as a whole is your problem. But rap didn't start off that way in America. Rap started off positive. Have you forgotten, the cultural rap? Have you forgotten all the albums of Boogie Down Productions? Have you forgotten all the albums of Public Enemy? Have you forgotten all the albums of X-Clan and Poor Righteous Teachers and Rakim, Eric B. and Rakim? Have you forgot the conscious rap that existed? Oh yeah, they had to put a stop to that, because then we would have been had a revolution of a different sort in this country. But they had to put a stop to that. And books have been written about that too. That's a whole nother topic of discussion. But I told you this stuff is multi-layered. Remember self-destruction? You're headed for self-destruction. Y'all remember that song? There was an East Coast version and a West Coast version. Both were dope versions for their time. All right? Have you forgotten? The teacher, KRS-One, the teacher. Have you forgotten what he was saying to you? You must learn. Well, the African American community stopped learning. See, this is what happened. The African American community got bamboozled and tricked into selling out. They were told by the record companies that no one wants to hear that music. You need to come and make this music. So they gradually introduced you to club music. See, rap went through its disco phase. All right, the house music, the club music. All right, that really became popular. People wasn't trying to hear no conscious rap. They didn't want to see nobody walking around with the big African beads and dashikis and all that. They didn't want to see that. They didn't want to hear that. They wanted to dance. They wanted to hear that club music. They wanted to hear that particular beat. All right? So that's what happened. They said they don't want to hear no conscious rap. Go ahead, KRS-One with that. We don't want to hear that. Go ahead, Chuck D, Public Enemy, Flavor Flav. Nobody want to hear 911 as a joke no more. We don't want to hear that. We want to hear Shake Your Butt. So then that's when the gangster rap came in. As a response to the soap, soft soap music that was out there, the bubblegum rap. So we don't want to do commercial rap. So the gangster rap came in and said, forget that soft stuff. I'm going to take my gun and I'm going to shoot that. I'm going to blow that up. So your gangster rap came in as a response to that. But they're like, no, I'm not doing that. And then that really took off. And then gang culture took off. All right. Then you start seeing the West Coast gang culture make its way to the East Coast. Very interesting how that happened, right? So now you got Bloods and Crips on the East Coast. You didn't have no Bloods and Crips on the East Coast. You didn't have no Bloods and Crips on the East Coast in the 80s. That came in the 90s. It wasn't about that. East Coast wasn't about that. East Coast was about blocks, communities, neighborhoods. Wasn't about colors. It was about neighborhoods. That changed, and so did the music. It changed. But then when the 90s left, so did the last vestiges of the conscious rap, positive rap. Remember, females weren't rapping about WAP. Back then, females was rapping about consciousness and being a woman, what it meant to be a woman. Remember Queen Latifah's Ladies First. All right. Remember Moni Love's album. Okay. Remember her album talking about relationships. Relationships. Everything was pro-woman. All right. Pro-woman. Remember Yo-Yo. You can't mess with my Yo-Yo. Remember Lady of Rage. Remember MC Light. She wasn't talking about WAP. She talked about relationships too. Sure enough. Queen Latifah was mad conscious. MC Light was talking about relationships. With a little bit of feminism put in there. All right. She made some hard stuff too. I never forget that. Because she was like, if I'm going to make some kind of, commercial songs, I'm going to make them hard. So she made them hard. You remember that? Remember back when MC Light and Antoinette had that thing, that battle going. Remember that? Rap changed. It was no longer about lyricism. They said nobody wanted to hear that. We want you to make songs that we can play on the radio. That can get mad spins that people can dance to. Nobody can dance to that. Nobody can dance to that, Rakim. Nobody can dance to lyrics of Fury. Big Daddy Kane, nobody can dance to Set It Off. Don't want to hear that. Make me a club song. Coogee Rap, nobody can dance to Poison. Come on now. Nobody can dance to that. DOC, what you doing, man? Nobody can dance to Whirlwind Pyramid. I don't want to hear that. One of the dopest songs ever created in rap. But nobody want to hear that. Keep that to yourself. We want something we can dance to. Yeah. Remember that. Remember the other thing that happened. You start having copycats. People coming out trying to sound like somebody else. All right? Y'all remember that? Y'all remember the whole Paris thing? When he jacked Chill Rob G's beat and became a global sensation with it. Chill Rob G had it on his album first. Sorry. And Chill Rob G is the far superior MC. But you didn't get a chance to hear that. And that was a club song that would have really put him on the map, and he got jacked. Y'all remember Paris? You remember. The music changed. The music shifted to the gangster rap. Now, see, here's the problem. Here's the problem. You can't really necessarily blame gangster rap alone. Not really. But it does play a part. But see, the thing had already been set in motion. Because when you look at the black exploitation movies of the 70s, what did you see there? Pimps and hoes. Everything was about pimps and hoes and gangsters. So it was only a matter of time before music started being made to portray that lifestyle. So you had gangster rap that came as a result of it. It was only natural it was going to happen. That's the evolution of it. The culture rap gone. Even if you tried to bring that into today, nobody's trying to hear you. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear you must learn. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear why is that. They don't want to hear why the Trump knocked down the towers. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear lyrics like he had to look just like him. If Moses spent all that time in Pharaoh's place, he had to look just like him. Y'all know the song I'm referring to. Y'all know that KRS-One track. They don't want to hear that. Now, around this time, see, the 90s was very interesting because the 90s made not just an impression, but something that will be with us for generations and decades to come. What you probably don't know is around, 1990, we had another phenomenon that came into being, and that was gospel rap. All right. Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you, those early gospel rappers was straight up whack. It was pathetic. All right. It wasn't until later on, into the mid 90s, once you started getting into the late 90s, the mid 90s, starting around 1995, something happened. Something powerful happened. Remember, the 90s was considered, the golden years of rap, right? But during this time, you had a new breed of gospel rappers coming. Now, gospel rap was before its time. Okay? It was before its time. The church did not support gospel rap at this time. There was no, internationally known, world-renowned, known gospel rappers. There were none at this time. They were not supported by the church. Now, around this time, you had another phenomenon that happened. You had what I call commercial gospel rap. I'm sure if I mention this group, even those who are not Christians or go to church, you will know this group when I say their name. Are you ready? DC Talk. They put DC Talk out in the forefront and pushed them. They had such a marketing machine behind them. Good grief. But that's all you really knew. You didn't hear about nobody else. Because, see, they were palatable. The church actually got behind them. They supported them. More can be talked about that a little later on. But a lot of people, they love DC Talk because they were not threatening. They didn't look threatening. They didn't sound threatening. And they weren't urban. They weren't ghetto. And they didn't speak Ebonics. They were non-threatening. But lyrically, they were whack. All right. So you didn't get a chance to hear the Tunnel Rats. You might not have heard about LPG and the Tunnel Rats. You might have never heard about the Cross Movement. You probably never heard the MC Propaganda. Probably never heard of him. But guess who you did hear about? Much, much later on, who had his start with the guys I just mentioned. If I say Lecrae, everybody knows Lecrae. Before Lecrae became pop sensation Lecrae, he was down with, associated with Cross Movement and Tunnel Rats and all the other underground gospel rappers at that time. And then you had another. See, this is you guys need to peep the science behind what I'm saying to you now. See, around this time too, 1995 was a pivotal year because guess who else dropped and came out? Technically, it was 1994 for this group, but really 1995 is when people really took notice. And that was a gospel rap group called the Gospel Gangsters. Now, here's why, they were very pivotal and would come to bring actual political change in the United States. I'm giving you guys some history that may not know. Some of the stuff you don't know about. Okay, so the Gospel Gangsters, what made them unique is that those dudes could spit. They were talented. They was raw. They could hang with any secular rap artist at that time. They were better than most secular rap artists at that time. Gospel Gangsters, when they dropped that album, man, that album was incredible. Incredible. And what made them incredible is because they were all ex-gangbangers. West Coast gangbangers, Bloods and Crips. West Coast gangbangers. That's what made gospel with them from a unique perspective as a person who used to gangbang. Because around these times, there was a unspoken thing in the street that if you wasn't from the street, you really couldn't talk to nobody in the street and reach them. They would say, you don't understand. Because remember, it was Will Smith who made the song, Parents Just Don't Understand. Able to reach the gangbangers in their local communities. And they had respect and props because they used to be one of them. So they understood the lifestyle. They understood the struggles. All right. They understood the culture. But see, this is something they're not going to get credit for. They're not going to get credit for bringing peace to the West Coast. Do y'all remember when the Bloods and the Crips back in the 90s dapped it up and it was peace for a minute? Do you know who was also part of that and don't get no credit? That was the Gospel Gangsters, because they had that chick. What's her name? I don't remember the female's name. Evangelist, pastor, whatever she called herself. She was a fiery preacher on the West Coast at that time, and she was ministering to the gangs as well. And she was able to be instrumental, along with the Gospel Gangsters, to bring peace between the Bloods and the Crips for a time before the CIA got involved and used COINTELPRO to start back the gangbanging because they needed that. That we can talk on that in another live. But they got involved and they broke all that up. All right, all that hard work, the Gospel Gangsters and that one female pastor who her name eludes me at the moment. Those of you who know what I'm talking about, you can type it in the live. But they were very instrumental in bringing peace, man, and bringing understanding. So around this time now, it wasn't until DC Talk got famous that the church started to come around to gospel rappers. But gospel rappers got no love. And the ones that started to get some love around the time of DC Talk was the whack ones that sounded like DC Talk. They got a lot of love. Everyone else got none. There was another group, and this was a West Coast group called LA Symphony. LA Symphony they were lyrical monsters, man. They were dope. They were like LPG and the Tunnel Rats and Cross Movement. They could spit, man. They made some dope tracks. And you had another dude, his name was Super C, and he was real dope. There's so many cats. I can't even remember name all the names, But my favorite was LPG and the Tunnel Rats and Cross Movement and LA Symphony, because in my opinion, they were the best spitters in the game. And as far as I'm concerned, Cross Movement and Tunnel Rats was the first Wu-Tang of rap. Their posse was so deep. There were so many affiliations, man. They were deep, and everybody could spit. And everybody made their own solo albums and did well. They were just talented. They were before Wu-Tang. They put themselves out there before Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang got noticed and recognized before they did, but they was putting out stuff before them. So the church did not support them. Now I need you to understand why all of this history is significant. Because like I said, the troubles and the plight of the African American community is multiple. But you need to understand where a lot of today's troubles are springing from. Keep in mind, around this time, this 1995 time, I'm telling you, you had these things going on in the community. Now, the sad part, and this is why I think that the problem in the African American community is going to continue to be prolific for many decades to come, unfortunately. Because you have the wolf guarding the hen house. The same people that were putting out the gospel records were none other than the secular record companies. Did you know that? The secular record companies were the ones putting out the gospel albums. It has always been that way. People just didn't know it and didn't realize it. They didn't know and they didn't realize it. All right, now I'll give you one bit of proof about this. And this part was really messed up. And this is why I say a lot of artists, they're innocent. They don't know. They really don't know. Especially the underground ones. They don't know because they're not really in. They're not up there with, the mainstream artists, but they don't know. All right? They don't know. Some do, but the majority of them, they don't know. And here's the proof about the compartmentalization of information and knowledge. You ready? My man, Propaganda from Cross Movement, put up a video, a decade back or so. And in the video, it was a dope video, Cross Movement video. It was dope, right? But it was because the song was dope. But there was only one problem. The people that shot the video were from the mainstream media of record company establishment. So they had them doing things in the video that I'm sure they didn't realize until after the fact. It was full of hand signals and Illuminati hand signals and 666 and pyramids and all this other stuff in the video. And I'm like, see, that's messed up. Now, for most people who didn't know those artists, they would have looked at that and said, see, I knew this whole thing was fake. See, they're Illuminati, man, they push it. No, I can tell you straight up from personal. We won't go into all of that, but Cross Movement and Propaganda, those guys are real born again Christians. All right, they're Reformed theology, born again believers, Christians. So I know for a fact they did not know what the final editing was going to end up being when they put it out there, and I doubt that they even know anything about that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I did not come into the knowledge of this stuff until 2009. I didn't know about all of that and this whole Luciferian satanic Illuminati agenda. I didn't know nothing about that. I knew about good and evil and things like that. But as far as this other stuff, I didn't have that deeper knowledge. And I doubt these guys did either. I don't ever recall them talking about it or even mentioning it in any of their talks or sermons or anything. So I'm sure they were not aware. I'm sure they became aware very quickly with all the comments under the video. Like, I can't believe you put the CNI on there and all this other stuff. So there it is. And the video should still be on YouTube. I just don't remember the name of the song. But anyway, I digress. The fact of the matter is, when you have the Christian artists having to go to the record companies that are and it's already out there, what makes you think that you're going to really get what you should be getting? No, what you're going to get is you're going to get a watered down gospel. You're going to get a watered down product. Now, thank God that the cross move is only using, this the camera people, whoever did the video was from the establishment, but all of their records and stuff before that, they put out their own stuff. So thank God, because if not, it would have been watered down too. But you see where I'm going. You got the powers that be over all of this, and there's a brother here on YouTube. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Scariest Movie Ever channel, but he did an interview with two quote unquote African American brothers recently, and he put it up on YouTube. Both of them have YouTube channels. I implore you to when I'm done here to go to Scariest Movie YouTube channel, find that thing that he did, talking to them, with the interview he did with them. The one brother in particular is what is called. It's called what is his name? What is his channel, man? He has some great information. Everything I've ever talked about and said, he put it together in several little mini documentaries, and it's just incredible, man. But anyway, the problem with the African American community is multifaceted, and until we sit down and have a real conversation about it, we won't be able to overcome it, because you're going to have to hit it piece by piece. You can't just eat the whole elephant in one bite. You're going to have to break down these layers. All right, seriously, I mean this with false sincerity. And by the way, I saw you, man. I saw you put down, check out Cambada. Yes, I just discovered Cambada a week ago. But that's him and Loaded Lux did a video. I saw that. Brother Theo, unplugging. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Wait a minute. You know what? Hold on. I just remembered something. Hold on 1 second. I think I know where I put it. I know where it is. Hold on 1 second. Sometimes my brain will think faster than my mouth can move, or sometimes my mouth will think faster than my brain can move. And it's just one of those things. Okay, here, let's go here. I think that's it, but the channel is named something else. Hold on. It goes by a different name. Hold on. I'm going to tell you right now. This takes a second. Oh, if you guys are not in the habit of doing it, you may want to get in the habit of starting to download stuff you see on YouTube, especially if you deem it to be controversial or like blowing the whistle. You need to download those things as soon as you see them, because they're going to get taken down. YouTube has stepped up its algorithm, man, and they're just taking stuff down. They're not even playing around no more. They don't even care. They're just, you say something they don't like, that thing is out of here. It's out of here. I'm serious. It's out of here. All right. Here we go. All right. I think I know where it is now. Okay. That's what happens when you have so many tabs open at once. Okay. Here we go. All right. Okay. Oh, did they take his stuff down? What? Hold on. That's messed up. Is my man's stuff taken down already? That's messed up. Hold on. Okay, found it. All right, let me put it in the live chat. I knew I would find it. This is the name of the YouTube channel I want y'all to go to right here. I just put it in the chat. It's called Days of Noah. That is the YouTube channel. Days of Noah. I think he breaks down the problem in the African American community rather thoroughly. And when I discovered it, I was like, man, I can't believe he's talking about everything that I have talked about over the last 10 years here on this channel. But yep, Days of Noah, but it's spelled D-A-Y-Z of Noah. Yeah, check out that YouTube channel, man. Brother has some just amazing little mini documentaries on there, man. Amazing. And he deals with a lot of this. But you got to peel the layers back. One of the layers that were peeled back is we have to talk about where the victimization begins and ends. As far as in our generation, we didn't live in the 1800s, so we don't know about the plight of our ancestors back then from an experiential standpoint, only by what we read. But one of those layers is that it is a known fact, and the individual who exposed this used to be a government agent and was assassinated by his own government. And he uncovered that the CIA was responsible for the crack cocaine epidemic in the 80s in the Black community, and that the CIA has been dealing drugs in the Black community for a very long time. And he paid for that information with his life. All right. That has a documented fact. All right. That is a documented fact. We have to address that. We have to embrace that. We have to own that. All right. Now, they didn't make you hustle on the corner, but people who were desperate saw it as a way out. I remember taking a course many moons ago, a psychology course. And in psychology at that time, it was determined that a drug dealer is a person who is mentally ill. And one of the characteristics of the mental illness, they stated, is that the fact that a person would willingly and knowingly sell poison to their fellow man, knowing that this poison could cause them to OD and die. And you would have to be a heartless, soulless individual to do that. Now, at the time I heard it, I was shocked. But there's a lot of truth to that. With all of the layers of the onion that plague the African American community, it's not uncommon to the human family as a whole. The things that the African American community are suffering is not just unique to them. A lot of things that they're suffering is worldwide. It is one of the consequences of living in a fallen world. But when you take and remove the father out of the home, that is where the problems begin. The beginning problem in the African American community is fatherless homes. All right. The babies out of wedlock exploded in the African American community after 1968, which coincides with a lot of other things, such as the whole welfare situation. You could not get the help and support. The family couldn't get it unless the man was removed out of the equation. The man had to leave the house in order for you to get the benefits. That was a stipulation of receiving welfare at that time. Thanks, Carl Shipley. I appreciate it. Yes, Michael Rupert. That's it. That was his name, Michael Rupert. Yep. There you go. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I have the smartest listeners on the planet. You guys help me out a lot. But I can't always think of the names. I'm not good with names at times, and I forget. I can't remember. But I know what I'm talking about. I just can't remember the person who said it. So I appreciate that. Yes, Michael Rupert. Yes. Yep, he died not long ago, and all that information is up there. It's very interesting because guess who else died in similar fashion, right? Your boy Alexis Jones. His I want to call sensei teacher. You know, the guy that he took his inspiration from. That guy, the one who remember the book, the Behold the Pale Horse. That dude. Before Alex Jones, there was him, and he got took out too. He got took out. So unfortunately, that's another issue we have to embrace. We got to embrace the government's involvement in drug trafficking in the African American community. We got to deal with that. Followed by the COINTELPRO, which is another government conspiracy in the African American community, where they took out all of the black leadership. Now I know somebody's gonna say, no, because so and so's and Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton are not African American leaders. Cut it out. Cut it out. Cut it out. If that was the case, then they would have shot them too. The reason they didn't shoot those two brothers, and I think you guys know why, because they were government informants, government agents. Let's deal with it. Let's deal with it. So we got to address the situation, the elephant in the room of the COINTELPRO program that took out black leadership. All right. And since then, you haven't had a problem with that. Now, those things happen in the not too distant past. All right. Happen in our generation. So we got to talk about it. Got to talk about it. All right, that's not some old news that happened 200 years ago. No, that happened recently. It happened in our lifetime. It happened in our lifetime. Many of you under the sound of my voice right now were alive when this happened. All right, so we can't pretend like the government didn't take responsibility in some of the things that are plaguing the African American community today. They don't take all the blame, but they do play a role in the blame. But then on the other hand, again, this whole social justice thing, man, is not going to. How do you explain the myriads of African American people who come out of the same ghettos who do well in life? And the reason being is because they make different choices. A lot of them too have some type of mentor or adult or someone in their life who has taken an interest in them and is trying to steer them in the right direction. Some of them get involved in the boys and girls clubs and community programs and sports and stuff, anything to take them off the street. But see, that is the next problem though. Again, fatherless homes. That goes back to that. That is the foundation of the problem in the African American community, and it's fatherless homes. All right, women having children out of wedlock, women having children without the benefit of marriage. The destruction of the black family starts by taking the man out the home. All right. Yeah, I see you, Carl. You say he took his own life. See, I don't know if I really buy that, because remember the government is very expert at making things look like an accident or look like a suicide. They're expert in that. They can take anybody out and make it look like an accident or make it look like a suicide. Oh yeah, yeah. And then you add to that mix the mainstream media machine. Oh yeah, yeah. They can pretty much convince you of anything if they want. They can tell you that Tweety Bird took them out, and by the time they finish with you'll believe it. Most people will believe it. Yeah, man, that's sad, man. I can't believe Tweety Bird turned to a life of crime, man. I can't believe he shot that man. Yep. Sylvester was right there with him. So was Bugs Bunny. They were all in on it. Oscar the Grouch and Big Bird, Snuffleupagus, all of them. And people will believe it. Yo, did you hear Snuffleupagus snuffed him? Yeah, man. They looking for snuffleupagus right now, yo. I just seen them down the street. People will believe. People will believe. You think I'm being funny? I'm not. I'm telling you the truth. The mainstream media machine is the most powerful machine on the planet. They can convince people of anything that they want. They got this thing on lock. And because of that, that's why I believe that the problems plaguing the that inner city community is going to go on forever, because it's lining the people's pockets. As long as this continues, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, all the race baiters, they will continue to make money. The police departments will continue to be funded overtime and make money off of it. The private prison industrial complex will continue to make money off of it. Everybody makes money off of this. That's why they need to keep this going. The African American inner city plight is a cash cow right now. That's why they need to keep that going in perpetuity. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's just sad that we're here today, and we have to address these things and peel the layers of the onion bit by bit. But I'm here to tell you the foundation is the fatherless homes and women having babies out of wedlock without the benefit of marriage. All right. And now you have the mainstream media telling you that you don't need family, you don't need a man. They're telling women they don't need men. You don't need a father and a mother. You can have two mommies. You can have three daddies. You don't need mommy and daddy. You don't need the nuclear family. They're telling you you don't need God in the Bible. You don't need righteousness. You don't need nothing but yourself. They're telling you that you don't need human interaction. They're trying to program you to be okay with never again being able to touch another human being, by having lockdowns in perpetuity, by having social distancing in perpetuity, by making it against the law that if you're walking down the street and you even so much as touch another person, you could be charged with a hate crime. You can be charged with violating some ordinance, social distance ordinance. They're making it so that people are afraid to talk to each other except through screens. Poor men and women out there can't get a date, can't find a prospect for marriage because you can't even get together in physical space. You can't take the young lady out for dinner no more because the restaurants are closed. It's just a mess. They are systematically destroying human to human contact and relationships through their demonic agendas. I got to tell you guys something else. Just when I think I'm done, there's more to talk about. Now, I have always known this for some time, but now I believe this is the next thing, the next big thing that's going to hit. And it's going to hit like a bag of bricks. Ladies and gentlemen, not only do we know that they're preparing you for the New World Order, they are really, really, really preparing you for the one world religion and for the Antichrist, the man of sin, the beast, false prophet. They're preparing you for all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, you won't believe it until you see it, but I'm just going to put it out there for you. I think one of the agendas that's going to be on the back of this is that not only do we have this whole rise of Semiramis worship, this feminism worship, the woman is God movement, but I think on the back of this, and maybe it could be years off, but I think I see where this is headed, where this is going. Okay, I think they're about to acknowledge it. I don't want you guys to be blindsided. That's why I'm putting this out here. I don't want no one to be blindsided, and I don't want you to be shocked if it happens sooner rather than later. I think they're going to come to the terms, and they're going to make you believe it, and I think they have a whole thing built upon it. And that is under the guise of disclosure. When you hear disclosure, you think of little green men. Oh, the government's finally going to come in and admit that UFOs exist and aliens exist. All right. See, ladies and gentlemen, we're at war. This is a spiritual war. It's not really a physical war. It's a spiritual war. All right. Behind all this is things happening in the heavenlies, spiritual warfare in the heavenlies. Any doctrine, any knowledge, any information that is hostile to God, that is not of God, is of the evil one. It's considered demonic. All right. You're about to see it not only said, but proven to you. The whole occult. When I say the occult, the kingdom of the occult, we're talking about everything that goes in that mix. I believe that is about to become mainstream adopted, because they're going to bring it full circle to you, because there's something that all of these things have in common when you talk about the occult. Even though they vary in their belief structures and systems, there's one thing that they all have in common. All right? One thing they all have in common. And that is that they hate Jews and Christians. At the end of the day, all of the world religions, all of the occult, New Age, whatever you want to call it, they agree that they hate Jews and Christians. They hate Judaism. They hate Christianity. They hate the Judeo-Christian faith. They hate Christ. They hate God. That's what they can all agree on. Anything that is not of God is of the evil one. We know this. Good versus evil. But there's something else that all of the occult have in common. And that is that they're all satanic. And they all serve one master, and that is the evil one, the father of lies. And guess who their representatives are? They all have the same representatives, and that is demonic entities that you call UFOs. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not an accident that there has been this, this big rise in the occult in the African American community. And I mean a sharp rise in the occult in the African American community. You got people walking around saying they're Kemetic. You got a lot of people walking around saying they're part of, the Moorish temple. Some people say, nah, man, I follow Farrakhan. Others say, nah, man, I follow Malachi York. There's tons of names that are under this umbrella, but it all comes down to the occult. What do they all teach you? They teach you that they are basically gods, that their ancestors under Imhotep and Hotep and under Kemet, the ancient name of Egypt, and Kemetics, they study all of the ancient artifacts and hieroglyphics. They tell you that the stories of Osiris and Isis and Horus, all the Egyptian occult, is referring to the nature and origin of the quote-unquote black race, and that the black race is the original man on planet Earth that was sent here, that was panspermia'd here, by our alien creators. The UFOs are nothing but the manifestation of our alien ancestry, our alien creators, who you've been seeing in the UFOs all of these many, many, many years are on their way back. They're coming back to collect us and to establish the black race as superior, as ancient, as God, as alien, when the truth of the matter is these aliens are nothing but fallen angels. These aliens are demonic entities. These aliens have their origin and makeup in fallingness. They are part of the third of the angelic host that fell with Lucifer. Why do you think God forbid in the Old Testament the practice of necromancy, the practice of witchcraft, the practice of sorcery, the practice of fortune telling, the practice of tarot cards, and the practice of astrology and the zodiac, the practice of all of this, of necromancy and doing seances and communicating with evil spirits and communicating with entities. Where do you think all this came from? Why do you think God said don't do it? Why do you think he said to stone the witches to death? Why do you think he said to kick them out of the community? Why is trafficking with demons such a grave sin if it was fake? If palm reading and fortune telling and tarot card reading and seances and magic spells and potions, if all of it was nothing more than a cheap parlor trick and sleight of hand playing card manipulation, then why would there be a ban on it from the Lord God of creation? Why would he detest such a thing if it's a parlor trick? If paranormal does not exist, if ghosts don't exist, if demons don't exist, if cryptid monsters don't exist, then why is there a ban on humanity from communicating and trafficking with them? You don't need to ban something that's make believe and doesn't exist. You only ban something to protect against it. There is a reason for these things. Why do you think that the young lady in the book of Acts in the New Testament, why do you think she made her handler so wealthy? They said that she would tell people's fortunes. She was a witch, a medium. She practiced sorcery and divination. And she made her handlers wealthy. If she couldn't divine things that actually happened and came to pass, she wouldn't have made a dime for her handlers. If she ever lied and said that something was going to happen and didn't happen, she wouldn't make no money. If she didn't have communication open lines with the demonic, would she have made her masters all that money? If it was fake and it was such a parlor trick, if magic doesn't exist, then why do we have the ancient documents that go on to say that after the apostles told the demon in her to shut up and come out, that she no longer was able to practice her magic gifts? It left her. Why did they run the apostles out of town, run them out of the city after they did that if it was fake and it doesn't exist? I'm not talking about the sleight of hand magic. I'm not talking about magic tricks. Pulling a rabbit out of your hat and pick a card. I'm not talking about David Copperfield illusions. I'm not talking about illusions, and I'm not talking about sleight of hand. I'm talking about real magic. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of documented cases throughout history of real witches and real sorcery and real testimony, eyewitness testimony of things that have happened in the past. If it was not real, there would be no reason to ban it. The Lord did it not because he doesn't want you to have fun, not because he doesn't want you to reach your true potential, but because it's harmful and that it's deceptive. And nothing good ever comes of it. Many years ago, there was a testimony from a witch doctor. My memory's a little foggy. I don't recall if he came from like the Amazon jungles in South America or whatever. But he was that kind of bushman, tribe that's far away, removed from society, deep in the jungles, in the woods or whatever. Anyway, this was a very powerful shaman, a very powerful sorcerer. And through the programs, what do you call it? Churches send people out, the missions. There you go. Through the missions, he became converted to Christ, and he gave his testimony, explaining just how real the sorcery was. So when we say magic, we have to define magic. I'm not talking about optical illusions and sleight of hand. That's a different type of magic. I'm talking about the Janus and Jambres type magic. Remember when Moses was able to turn his rod into a giant serpent? And then Janus and Jambres took their rod, stood on the ground, and they became serpents. But Moses' serpent devoured their serpents and then turned back to a rod. Remember that? If that was a parlor trick, if that was an illusion, an optical illusion, right? Then why, if it was such an illusion, if it was nothing but optical illusions, then why did Pharaoh finally say, you know what, take you and these Israelites and get out of my country? All right, so this is all matter of factual, okay? You got to understand these things. There's a reason for this, but this is something that is coming full center to the African American community. All right, getting steeped into this divination and the occult, and it's really sad. But this is where we're going, ladies and gentlemen, and we're here. This is another big problem, a big layer of the onion that we got to peel back. All right, another problem under the same umbrella is the fake churches in the African American community. All right, fake churches, fake pastors speaking false doctrine and presenting anti-biblical behavior across the pulpit and in their personal lives. If the pastor's not saved, how can you expect the congregation to be? There's so many things plaguing the inner city, the African American community. We could do volumes of episodes on this. All right. This is a problem. This is a problem, and we have to deal with it. We got to deal with this if we are going to get at it. But again, the foundation is the family. If family implodes, a nation is doomed. Once you destroy the family, there's no nation at that point. Nations are made up of families. Without family, you ain't got a nation. You're done. You're doomed. You're doomed. You're doomed. So I'm going to go ahead and end it now. I think I've been long enough today. But we're going to get into some more stuff here. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into this. We need to deal with this African American community crisis. We need to deal with these things, and we will on our next episode. So stay tuned. Go ahead and smash that like button, and remember, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And I'm out.